Hello, everyone. This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. And I hope you can see me. Can you guys see me out there? Let me just take a look here and see. Well, it looks like it. Yeah, all right. I'm looking at myself on a muted YouTube channel. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Is there anyone out there? Oh, there's 7 people according to this. Okay, guys, as you know, we start kind of slow usually. It takes about 10 minutes for people to start getting here in sufficient numbers. And, oh, there we go. Hi, Monkey. How's it going? The monkey says, yes, you can hear me. Perfect. And today we're going to have a very interesting show, and it's a convenient show in a certain way. We're going to be having Griff Morgan, who is one of the biggest experts on what the real old school gaming scene was like. And he's going to be talking in part about, how people really did domain level play in the olden days. He's apparently brought some audio visual aids and everything, and we're hopefully I think neither of the two of us are super great at this, but we're going to be trying to make it work to put these up so you can see some interesting stuff. And we're going to be talking about his latest projects, and we're going to be talking about the new Greyhawk book that was introduced in the GaryCon convention that is going to involve Luke Gygax and is going to involve Wizards of the Coast, and what we think about that and whether it's going to be an absolute disaster or not. I can tell you I have misgivings. We will see what Griff has to say in a short while, in a few minutes. Meanwhile, I want to point out to those of you who've gotten here early that today on DriveThruRPG, the Old School Companion 3 is the drive-through deal of the day, which means that you would only be paying half the price. I think it's half the price or right around there for the PDF. So if you have not yet picked up the Old School Companion 3, which is the biggest of the Old School Companions, that is my personal kind of favorite, you could say, you should go check it out now. This is a golden opportunity to get the product at a discounted rate. And it's really worth it. It's got it has a new class. It has some various new types of medieval authentic magic. It has rules on the veneration of saints. It has medieval life and activities. It has one of my favorite ever RPG Pundit Presents books, which is the Medieval College Adventures. If instead of Hogwarts or something like that, you want to play people learning the until recently forbidden arts in Oxford or Cambridge in the real Middle Ages, which were crazier and more outrageous than pretty much anything you've ever seen on television, then check out the Medieval College Adventures section of the Old School Companion 3. Almost everything in the book is basically system neutral. It's like OSR, at least not system neutral, but it's OSR compatible, right? It's got its stuff for all of that. You also get like 3 complete medieval cities in the book: Ipswich, Kingston, and Exeter, and a large section on real medieval monsters that are not the kind that have appeared in the monster manual. You have 25 creatures there that are from medieval legend, and some of them are very weird, very weird. Strange features of local towns, guidelines to the aristocracy, medieval life and activities, and secret societies. So it's a really great deal, and you should check out the book right now. It's the deal of the day, half price. It's never going to be that cheap again, probably. So this is the golden opportunity for you. Go take a look. Also, we have now we're now re-releasing, in case you haven't heard already, we're re-releasing the Pundit Files books, the ones that were previously in the Red Room, but that when the Red Room store shut down, we had to move them out. Now, Lixuni Gaming is kind enough to be hosting the Pundit Files, and we are currently up to issue 5. It's on drive-through now. Sadly, because drive-through takes their cut, it can't be tree fitty anymore. So instead, it's faux fitty. Okay, for just faux fitty, you can get one of the issues of the Pundit Files. And the latest one is issue number 5, the Silk Road Guide. Oh, no, wait. I am wrong. I am wrong because today is Saturday. So up until today, the latest one was the Silk Road Guide to Baghdad, a complete city guide, again, to the city of Baghdad in the 12th century. But that is not the latest one you can get, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, that's right, because it's Saturday. So here we are. The latest one you can get is Pundit File 6, Siege Rules, which is a complete set of mechanics for handling siege warfare, from the initial assault to the long siege, covering events and mechanics for defender and attacker alike, and it's designed for any OSR type game. So be sure to check that out. That is the Pundit Files issue 6. I've just posted the link in the chat. So there you go. That is my latest product news. And while we're still waiting a little longer, while we're getting some more people in, I will comment that today we're not monetized, right? Because it is it's annoying for people apparently to get ads in the middle of a live stream, and I think that's fair. So if you do, however, want to support me, besides buying the books, which is probably the best way to support me actually, but another great way, if it's more convenient to you, is Super Chats. And all funds from the Super Chats will be dedicated to the Domino Cat Toy Fund. Domino is around here somewhere. She was here a little while ago, but I don't see her now. But she might show up. We never know. We don't know at what time she'll come or not. She's not really as much of a camera hog as my older cats were, but she'll show up unexpectedly. Most recently, she showed up to express her absolute contempt for the grossest Lamentations of the Flame Princess adventure of all time, which I did a review of, which you can find on this channel. And you can see how Domino was not amused. All right. So, oh yeah, no, it isn't Saturday. You're right. It's Sunday already. I was just looking at the comments. I said Saturday, but it's what I really meant to say. It's past Saturday because it's on Saturday nights that they post the latest issue of the Pundit Files, right? Assuming Lixuni is doing what their job is, which they were. And by the way, check out the Lixuni Gaming himself has a number of his own short form OSR books in there, and they are quite good. They're quite interesting, right? I think he's got up to like 6 of them or something. Yeah, so he has he calls it Appendix L, and he has like Cities Made Lazy, Deathly Grunts, Fane of the Larulians, I think that's an adventure, Rising Generals, Savage Scavengers, and Skilled Masters, right? And these are all, again, they're PDF files. They're kind of in I think he was kind of inspired by the Pundit Presents and the Pundit Files to do it in that format. And, while you're checking out buying the issues of the Pundit Files that you didn't get yet, you should check out Lixuni's products too, because they're quite good. And I encourage you to give them a look. All right. So we are almost there now, I think. What do we have here? We got 17 people. I think there's still going to be more people coming in as we carry on, so I don't want to do this too rushed or anything, but we are going to have with us tonight Griff Morgan. Let me just light my pipe and then we'll get started. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Comments. If you do a super chat, I will definitely read your comment unless it would get me like banned or demonetized. And if you don't do a super chat, then if I find your comment interesting, I may still post it. Right? I'm not gonna limit myself only to people who are willing to pay money to have their comments shown on screen, like in some other channels. So do feel free to interact. Feel free to put questions on the chat. If this is your first time here, you may not realize that you will. We are very interactive here, but we reserve the discretion of who we pay attention to or not. This is an interesting point here, by the way, Bo Paints Minis, and we are going to be talking about that tonight. Okay, but that's going to be in our third segment. All right. Monkey says, I am waiting for the sci-fi book. Well, I have good news on that. We don't have a definitive date set yet, but I can tell you that like almost every day, I am getting updates from Mad Scribe about the book. And I think the artwork and the layout, he's just showed me what he wants to use as his layout. It looks fantastic, right? It is like, I've been saying that Sons of Heaven is like the Bronze Age collapse in space, or like a biblical Old Testament epic in space, or things like that. And I think he's really captured that element of it, right? He's captured this kind of epic ancientness thing, and he's captured the kind of this kind of Euro style of sci-fi. Like it doesn't look. What I didn't want it to look like was just like Star Trek or Star Wars. Right? And it'll have a little bit of those things, of course, but it's not meant to be that. Hello, Double D. It's nice to see you here. What do you think of Diversity and Dragons' idea that D&D production needs to go back to the Midwest to have any chance of the game recovering? You know what? I mostly disagree with that, but not because of the idea of getting out of Seattle. You definitely should get out of Seattle, right? They need to get out of Seattle. What I am worried about is that the Midwest is not conservative enough, okay? I think that they would need to go to somewhere like find the place that had the highest voting ratio for Trump and put Wizards of the Coast there, right? I think that's what would be necessary. So you've got to go like further out. Because I mean, like, look, Luke Gygax is in the Midwest. And do we trust him? Do we trust him making a pact with Wizards of the Coast in spite of what they said about his father? That is the question. All right, let's get started here. I'm going to call up Griff, and we're going to begin our interviews. Here we are, Griff. You are live now.
Yay! I'm here,
and we're going to begin. I don't know if you've ever watched an episode of the RPG Pundit Encounter.
I think I've seen it.
It's a questionnaire, sort of question and answer sort of interview show. But I always start with the same question to everybody who comes on. Right. The first question is always, who was good to you and who was bad to you? And this is your chance to let it rip on either end or both. Yeah.
I'm trying to think who was good to me. I mean, there's like all these people that were trying to think who, it's funny because it's like a lot of people don't publicly come out and say anything. But every time I meet people who are in the business that are kind of older, like if you look at who comes to like Arnicon game convention, the guests they're like, I'll contact them out of the blue. They don't know. Supposedly they don't know who I am. And I send them a message on social media and they're like, oh, hey, Griff, and they're glad to come. I don't know about who was good to me. I mean, so many people were the people that were, that the RPG community is so contentious and it just gets so stupid. It's like, it's like being in high school, like all the drama and social media in general is a lot of people either wanting to be really famous somehow for doing something, or not even for doing something, just, there's a lady out there who had sex with 1,000 men and now she's famous, like, whatever, I don't care, And gaming is no difference. It's like there are a lot of people out there willing to whore for any kind of attention they can get. And
That's really true.
and I don't know. I mean, people that were bad to me, I've tried to reach out. Like, even when we started, I tried to reach out to WotC, actually, because I was like, well, I'm doing a documentary about Dave Arneson. He's one of the founders of D&D, equally with Gary Gygax. I think they did it together. You know, it was definitely a synergistic thing. And so I tried to find ways to reach out to them, and I never heard anything back from them. When I was, like, the meanest I've had probably was when I was at GaryCon the first time. There were a bunch of ex-TSR employees, but I think they weren't really like early TSR employees. They were like later people, and they really thought they were important and special.
Like late 80s guys or whatever.
Yeah, and they were like snubbing me. They were like, you know, like laughing at me, like, oh, there's that guy, because nobody knew what I was going to do yet. So the word had gone out. I was doing a Dave Arneson documentary, so instantly I was Satan. And you know, they were like, well, don't you know who this guy is? And I was like, no, I don't. Who is he? Introduce me. You know, like I'm an old schooler. I don't care about anything that was produced after about 85. I don't care. You can be like world famous. I don't care who you are. And so they were trying to be really snotty to me. What's that?
Except the pundit, right? You care about the pundit.
I care about the pundit, yeah.
Very good.
Well, I mean, but as far as like big corporate stuff, like the corporate scumbags, you know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even trying to conjure the feeling I had in the moment, it was like being in a schoolyard and like, ooh, you're a retard, you know. And I'm like, and I was just like I'm an adult, and here I am. We can talk, you know. And so when they saw that I wouldn't get the bait, half of them came over and they were like, well, what are you up to? And they were curious about me. And the other half were like, you know. So I would say that maybe a lot of WotC employees were really crappy to me in person, to my face. So there's no love lost between me and WotC. And so, you know, I will gladly tell you that in my heart of hearts, WotC can burn. I don't think they do what I consider to be actually Dungeons and Dragons. They stopped doing Dungeons and Dragons a long time ago, and they don't really care about what it is because they're not fans. They don't have any investment. They're a corporation, and corporations operate from a place of just like the, you know, the woman they put in charge of it. I forgot her name.
Cynthia Williams.
Williams was her last name. She, you know, proclaimed that she had never played Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that was somehow cool.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would have done, being put in charge of a company to tell people that I've never actually, you know, like, I don't know, like the guy was it the Campbell soup guy that went out and bragged that he didn't eat Campbell soup because that was for like low lifes, you know, like, it's just not good business, right?
So I think you've got a slight bit of lag on, like, you're not freezing, but your camera's, at least from me, audience, let me know if the same effect, if you're seeing the same thing, or if it's just me because maybe it's my thing that's slow. I don't know. Well, it looks like you're doing better now.
Okay.
Right,
it might be my internet too.
Yeah, it could be anyone's.
I shut down my feed from YouTube just because I didn't want to like clog my internet connection. Yeah.
Bedrock says the industry can be like going back to high school in terms of people have formed cliques and treat one another. He's a publisher. He's published one of my books.
Who was that on here?
Bedrock.
Bedrock Brendan. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
you kind of got to move past that. I mean, if you have talked to me at all on social media, I'm mostly on Twitter these days because I really hate the other places. I won't even name them. And so one of the things I do a lot is if I'm looking, I'll be looking at Reddit and I'll find somebody's trying to promote some obscure little product. I'll grab the link. I'll go put a post on my Twitter account. Hey, here's an indie trying to do a thing, you know. And my whole thing is like, share it. It may not be for you, but somebody you know might want this. It might be like, oh, this looks like exactly what I need to run my campaign, or just what I need as a break from what I normally run. And so I'm always promoting everybody I can. Sure. I don't have any ego investment in being like the top dog or anything like that, you know.
For sure.
There's a bit of humility. If you're old school, there's humility. I mean, even if you sell 10,000 units, you're nothing. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Bo Paints Mini says, "What's your Twitter handle?" I'm guessing that's for you.
It's Blackmoor_film.
There you go, Blackmoor_film. Now, getting on to that topic, let's. Probably everybody watching knows who you are, but just in case there's some people who don't, could you give us like a very brief introduction of what you've done so far that has made you kind of well known in the OSR, specifically, you know, the Blackmoor film and Tonnisborg, and then and then we're going to get to talk about what you've been doing lately, right?
Yeah. The thing that I got known for was I stumbled into accidentally doing a documentary on the origins of role playing and Secrets of Blackmoor. You see the handle on Griff-Secrets of Blackmoor. And so I worked with Chris Graves, my partner and business partner. Every time I say he's my partner, I've had people be like,
"You're life
such
partner,
a nice couple." You know, it's like, no. Not that there's any problem there, but my business partner. So Chris and I, just on a lark, went out to the Twin Cities and started doing some kind of investigative journalism, basically. We went out, interviewed people. I would cold call them. We did 10 days to see if there was even a story there. And so we got all this great footage, and then we spent the total amount of time. I looked finally at the documents, and it was about 7 years that I was working on it. And Chris came in at the almost 6 year mark, or like 6.5 years, half a year into my research. And so, yeah, we created this documentary, and it's really, people get mad because we titled it the True History of Dungeons and Dragons. And we did that just because we needed to put the word Dungeons and Dragons into the title. If we'd called it the True History of Role-Playing Games, nobody would find it in searches and stuff, because most gamers are kind of they're casual gamers. It's nothing wrong with it. But they're not that serious about it. So if you put Dungeons and Dragons in the title, they'll jump in. I'm really worried. I'm sorry I'm going on so long. Anyway, I did this documentary.
We'll just carry on.
In the process of doing the documentary, we discovered this old dungeon, and see if I should have gotten my hardbound.
Lost Dungeon of Tonnisborg. I have it, but downstairs, I'm afraid. So I can't.
Yeah, you have a hardbound, or you? Yeah,
I do. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful book.
We discovered this old dungeon, and there's a long story behind it. I won't go through the whole story. It's actually in the book. The paperbacks are pretty cheap. TFOTT.com is our website. You can get a paperback for $30. It's not that expensive, or a movie. So we produced that as well, because it was pretty much I don't know if it was the second oldest mega dungeon, but it's definitely the second oldest mega dungeon out of the Twin Cities that was from the world of Blackmoor. So we found these maps. We got Greg with some writing for it. I got together with another game historian, Dan Boggs, and he also was like a consultant on Secrets of Blackmoor, one of the historians that was vetting and proofing a lot of the research along with some others. And we did a book. And so you can play a dungeon that's from before D&D was published, from, I believe it's about June of 1973 was when it was created. And so it's a cool dungeon. I mean, even the art, I don't know if the date is on this one, but I think it was a
dungeon that was made before D&D was even published. That's the thing, though, right?
Yeah,
so it's kind of a prototype dungeon and I've played it. I've run that dungeon, and it is fantastic. It's very entertaining.
It's a good fun dive,
There's so many things that are slightly different than what would become in later dungeons, right? Like there's a lot of weirdness to it just because it was like the first draft, you could say, but it's really
right from the beginnings, yeah. And there's a lot of interpretation in the rules. The rules that were used were the pre-publication draft, and so people talk about there's a room where it has wyverns in it, and the first thing that people noticed when they bought the book was the description, like there's a 10 by 10 foot room, and it's got like 6 or 7 wyverns in it on the first level.
There must be tiny wyverns, I guess.
Well, and if you
that's funny, because I remember when me and my friends were just starting to play D&D, 12, 13 years old, stuff like that, right? And we started making dungeons. We do the same thing. And you know what? There are some people, I mean, Venture Satan is a grown-ass man. And if in his published dungeons, he'll have a giant, like a massive, like a 50-foot tall giant in a room that can barely fit him with no way to get out.
It's like the giant phone booth. Yeah. Well, the thing
there's
I was
people
going
that
to bring
still
up,
do that today.
when we finally got a copy of this original draft, pre-publication draft, the monster description for a wyvern is literally 2 sentences or 1 sentence. It just says, like, it is a very small dragon.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Greg Svensson gets this rule book, and it just says, a small dragon. Well, in my head, it's going to be the size of a dog or something like that. So, yeah, I'll put 7 of those in a 10 by 10 foot room. We didn't have, none of the early D&D described the size of things like that. Only came out in 77 when the Monster Manual came out. Before then, people were just flying by the seat of their pants. But anyway, I'm going on a long rant. I'm just going to go through the product. I did that, and then we discovered a bunch of artifacts that were from Dave Arneson's original campaign. They were just write-ups, like text write-ups of his adventures and stuff. And so we published a book of them. And so you can go in and see, I mean, it doesn't look like much, but they're actually typed up, like on a typewriter, descriptions of the original adventures that Arneson ran for his players in the first year or 2.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool. And they even have, like, Arneson did some art. I don't know if it's very in focus, but that's like,
pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, he did art to illustrate, like, sort of like a kid. Well, he had to have been, God, it's like maybe 3 years before. It
seems a bit, that whole project seems a bit Tolkien-esque, doesn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah, it has that influence. But he's 20 years old, and he's invented role-playing games, so. Yeah, he has to be about 20 or 21, and he's in a basement at his parents' house with, like, all these other gamers, and he's invented role-playing games, and he wants to do something with it, and so he's, like, doing these write-ups and stuff, and it's really creative,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what I'm known for, is that. And
what are your upcoming projects? What are you working on?
We have a lot of stuff, not all stuff I wrote, Pundit. Like you mentioned, sci-fi games. We got 2 sci-fi games that were created around 73. They were both submitted to TSR for publication.
Really?
TSR, because of the drama with Dave Arneson, rejected them. So we have these manuscripts for a game called Mutant, which sort of predates Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World. And so that's by Richard Snyder, who's kind of known in OSR circles as an RPG designer or a game designer, because he was also on he worked for Avalon Hill briefly, I think, and maybe he did something for SPI. I'm pretty sure it was Avalon Hill, but I don't know, Perils and something. But and then I'm working on a book. I kind of want to get people thinking about, like, I think that the OSR idea, I call it classic RPG now, because I think OSR just doesn't mean anything. If you say classic RPG, it means something. And it's not that we want to only play in the old way, but there are certain things we want to bring forward and mix with new ideas. And so I'm doing here's the prototype, actually, of the map. I've got a whole dungeon here. Giant prototype, hand-drawn.
Wow.
Hand-drawn, no grid, just me and a cool protractor and ruler. And so I'm doing a whole dungeon that's just based on the idea that original Dungeons and Dragons, or at least Blackmoor, was really rooted in a mixture of fantasy and gothic horror at the same time. And so the players were going in, like, the idea was to kind of scare your players. Like, you see it in D&D, but it's all become so mushy and like plush toy now. And the real idea behind playing D&D, what's that?
It sure has.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
So the real idea, I don't know.
Beholders are friendly gay people,
Yeah. And everybody's, all this, orcs are friends, Balrogs are friends. The old way of playing was really that you kind of wanted to do something similar to the horror movies that we saw as kids. And maybe they weren't as grim as what you might see now. Now we've got real, like, I don't know, you get into a lot of like dismembering and things like that, whereas the Gothic style is more like a mental game, and the idea was to sort of do things, you know, who gets freaked out by a clump of hair, bloody hair lying on the ground in the room, right? Like that doesn't do anything to you, but you open the door, what do you see? There's something shiny. Well, let's go look at it. What is it? Well, it looks like just a wad of hair with blood, right? And doesn't do anything, but you know, somebody in your game group is like, "Ugh," and then you go to the next room.
That's an important element of like dungeon design is to have these like incidental feature elements, you know.
You can't really do like the horror movie jump scare thing, you know, like the thing comes around from behind.
But you can have something that's already there that people be like, wait a minute, what is this, you know, or why is this here, right? Is this important, or is it just something that someone left there, you know? Is that sort of thing?
Right. You kind of mix up, you know, the things that are really scary and don't mean anything, and the things that are scary that might mean something, like the trail of blood leading up the hallway. Maybe we don't go that way because something has just killed someone here and dragged them off, and it's probably pretty bad. So yeah, I mean, you know, whatever you can do to trigger your players. There's somebody who doesn't like spiders. Okay, we're gonna have lots of little spiders. It's gonna, you know, it's like the
wait, what if they do the X sign? What happens then?
With the X sign? The X sign is on the map, and it's like this, and it means that there's a pit there, and you roll a die to see if somebody falls into the pit and dies. There's no X signs. Yeah. Like,
did you think of that up, you know, ahead of time? Because that's excellent.
I just thought of it. Someday. Well, they did those cards about what were those? They were
safety cards.
Yeah, and I had submitted something, but they had this form to do it, and I was like, well, I just posted in the discussion, just use that. And my card for that was the X card, and the description was this is like algebra or something like that. We must solve for X. You must make whatever is toxic and disturbing even more toxic and disturbing, so that people can like quantize the value of this X that needs to be seen. And I forgot how I described it. It was pretty funny, but I somehow didn't get in on those cards, and I was really excited about my X card being you must solve for X.
That's clever.
But that's my weird sense of humor. Maybe not everybody laughs about stuff like that. But no, that's what we did. You know, it was like you come in. What does the room look like? You describe it. It's like a temple. And it's like, ooh, there's going to be cultists. Like, is it an old temple and there's no cultists, or there's undead here now because the cultists are all dead and they're going to come up and or is it new cultists? They're going to show up in a mob and attack you. And so, I don't know. That's what my whole new book is about, is just trying to be creepy and like maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't call it necessarily politically incorrect, but unsafe. Yeah. Like anti-safe culture.
Creepy in a kind of old school way, not like Lamentations of the Flame Princess, gross out stuff or stuff like that.
I have a little bit of that. I put in a couple rooms, but I'm just like my whole thing is that anybody should be able to enjoy it. If you don't like those rooms, I'm like, just remove it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to Chris. I kind of want to put a trigger warning on the book, because I think that I want the freedom to put whatever is in there. And it's like, look, if you don't like these kind of things, then you shouldn't, like, there should be something telling you that this is, just keep walking through the bookstore because you don't want to look at this book, right? So yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's just D&D stuff. D&D. Mm-hmm. And it's all old school D&D because I'm kind of just doing I tried Pathfinder and it was just like, it just didn't work for me. And I won't go into that whole discussion. It has to do with the core mechanic being a universal mechanic, which they also did for 5e. And I think that interferes with the whole immersion aspect. And I'd rather have less rules and kind of quirky rules so players can't metagame as much. And it becomes a little bit more of a, I don't know, it just becomes old school, you know.
I can understand that. Are you doing any Kickstarter at the moment, or do you have a plan to do anything like that?
I'm slamming and jamming to finish the Spiral Keep, the Terror of Spiral Keep dungeon, and And when that's done, we'll do a Kickstarter for that. We've been focusing a lot on Arnicon, the game convention. Again, TFOTT, F is in T is in Tom, F is in Frank, O is in, I don't know, a bad word, TT. That's our website. You can go there, and there's Arnicon and the books and the movie. It's all there. And we even worked with Rob Kuntz. He was kind of, Rob's kind of been kicked off to the side by the mainstream. He doesn't get invited to the big conventions. WotC doesn't even want him to, like, they'll be happy.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
Right. And Rob is I think really overlooked as a fundamental person in the design of original Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. And he's essentially the last man standing now, isn't he? Like
and he was out of the Lake Geneva people. He was the first person that really knew what was going on. If you go into like this book here, there is a write-up that Dave Arneson did about his adventures, and he sent a copy of it to Rob Kuntz. And the reason we know that is that we hadn't found the write-up yet, but there was a letter from Rob Kuntz where he was like, who the hell would have a Balrog as part of the party? And what happened in the campaign was one of the guys, like an actual player was playing a Balrog, and they needed to go do something. And so they created some alliance, and they're ashamed of Rob. Yeah. And I mean, I don't do the politics thing, but I'm kind of a liberal, and I don't care that he's a conservative because he's a founding designer of D&D, and that's all I care about. But so Rob wrote back, so we know that Arneson's players were doing these really unique things that people think they invented them now, but they're, the first vampire player character was not Vampire the Masquerade. It was in Blackmoor in about 1970, 71 or so. And, and there was also a person playing a Balrog at that time too. And since then there was another guy who was the king of the fairies, I think, maybe. It was either the fairies or he was the king of the fairies. He lived in the woods. There were all these players playing different factions, and so they played
Dad and Son is asking you, hey, Griff, do you need art for your dungeon?
Well, I will take art and use it if it fits the book, and I will pay you for it if it works in the book. Like I need to set up some way to track it because I got so much information, but I'd love to see examples. I'm talking to various artists already, and I don't want to deal with like corporate insider artists, because the kind of art, like, I don't want somebody to be like a graphic artist who's like, tell me what you want it to look like, and
one would think you would want the art to have at the least a callback to the like old school or early styles.
It has to be somebody that you have to just get it. Am I frozen for you, by the way?
No.
Okay, I'm on my screen. I'm frozen, so
I can.
Oh, I'm just slow. I'm like, maybe my girlfriend's watching a movie upstairs and killing my bandwidth down here.
She's watching some.
Yeah, but we're looking for art, definitely. Like I keep seeing art by unknown people, and I'm like, oh, that looks great. I want to use like a piece or two. And the other thing is that there's sort of that corporate attitude of like all the art has to be by a single person, and so like if you look at all the WotC stuff, they have a style sheet. It's a corporate style sheet. It's like the art has to, like, here's the colors you're allowed to use, and it has to look like in this theme, and it all looks the same, and it's really boring.
Nowadays the color rules are everything has to be in pastel colors and feminized, So
yeah, it looks like an ice cream shop vomited on the artwork,
Yeah, exactly.
And so yeah, sure. I just need to see it first, and you can't be offended if I just don't feel like it fits the particular thing. That's all.
Obviously.
Yeah. So.
Right. Well, carrying on to our next subject, the last time you and I hung out together.
Yeah. We don't need to say who or where. No. Just we were on a show together, and it was an unpleasant situation.
You had prepared a whole presentation that you were going to give regarding how things really worked especially in terms of, I guess, domain style play in the old school era. And unfortunately, events took place that prevented you from being able to do that? So,
yeah, it was starting to turn into sort of a zoo, and I wasn't there to like do drama, and I avoid it anymore because I just I don't know, it's a waste of my time. I got other stuff to do, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, I'd prepped a lot of stuff, and it wasn't like I was there to be actually at war with the group. Um, I do have some issues with. I don't even want to talk about that. Like, you're over
Yeah.
there, you're doing your thing. I'm glad you're doing your thing. Have fun. Just don't be a
Well,
jerk, you know. But I was actually really excited to like talk about things that have been done in the past, ideas people have used in the past, and how those ideas can impact what you're doing now. Um, and yeah, I'm looking at the comments. The guys at Bushwhack Griff, yeah. I won't go on a show with somebody that I'm so tired of people that won't show their face. Like, if you're going to go up there and I can't see your face, and it's just like you think you're Batman or something, larping at being a game designer and hiding your face, I'm not going to deal with you. I'm done with that. Either you're out there and people know who you are, or you don't exist, you know.
So the point of me bringing it up, though, is that one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the Pundit Encounter, which this is, well, I haven't done very many repeats of anyone anyways, but this is the first time you've been on the Pundit Encounter. You've been on Inappropriate Characters in the past, but is that I wanted you to kind of be able to get a chance to give that presentation because it sounded very interesting. So if you are ready, we can.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody that's here, when you were a kid, I mean, I'm a little older than everybody that's watching, maybe. I don't know how old everybody is, but I'm first generation RPG. So when the guys that invented D&D were like in their 20s, I was in my teens. It came out, I was a teenager. The designers were 20-something college students. And so I had a lot of similarity with those designers as far as cultural information that related to the game. And so things like Risk, everybody, before I got into D&D, it's kind of a parallel because it's a long story. But everybody's played Risk, and that's kind of a domain war game that's easy to play and everybody understands it. It's really time consuming and it can ruin friendships. But, and a variant on like Diplomacy, which was like a role played.
Yeah. Well, there was a time when, if you look back in the history of games in the late 50s and early 60s, Diplomacy was the first one that like caught fire in that sense, because it was a game like nothing that had been done before by a major board game company, and it was huge.
There were fanzines and clubs, and like there were people that only played Diplomacy. It was like their thing.
The difference between Risk and Diplomacy was that people sometimes in Risk did this anyways, right? But in Diplomacy, it was an inherent part of the game that after a turn was played, everybody would start trying to make, negotiating and switching sides and stuff like that, right? Like, and so it had that whole component of you were playing this country, Austria-Hungary or whatever, and you had to try to see if you could make deals with the Russians or with the English or whatever, right? And to try to save yourself,
There's a lot of games since then. One of my favorites is Pax Britannica. It was by Kostikian. He did Paranoia RPG, but he also created Pax Britannica, which is like a 7-player world dominion sort of thing, very politically incorrect because during the colonial era. And you play the game, and the British pretty much dominate everything. But every time they do something, there's like an activity clock where the global tension grows and grows, and the game kind of randomly ends based on how much chaos is going on, and then you just kind of count up, who's dominating most of the world, and that's the end of the game. It's sort of like a pre-World War I colonial era game, but it's absolutely fascinating because you even have like slips for doing alliances and stuff, and it takes about 12 to 14 hours to play a game. Like, you'd have to do it over 2 days. It was just massive, but you've got that history, like people are familiar with these things. You've got Diplomacy. Are you still there?
I am, yeah.
Okay, I couldn't hear anything, so I'm like, I'm frozen.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, I'm frozen on my own screen. So you've got kind of you've got these parallel things going on where you've got the Blackmoor bunch, which are the MMSA group in the Twin Cities. They're doing a lot of stuff where they're exploring these ideas of taking a war game and trying to introduce fog of war, which is essentially early role-playing, a role-playing aspect, different degrees of that, which you'd have to watch Secrets of Blackmoor to kind of learn more about that. But also the British gamers, like I think I sent you, well, there's like Strategos. I sent you a slide for Strategos from the movie, I think. And yeah, and so that's like an 1880s game that really influenced the Blackmoor bunch. And if you look through it really closely, there are passages in there where Totten talks about not just a war game where you're playing on the board, but there's sort of temporal stuff where it's like you have to sit down and plan your battle ahead of time. Like how many wagons can you buy and how many shovels can you buy so you can dig entrenchments, and you know there are charts for doing stuff like that that might take like a day ahead of a battle to do. And so it's pretty strongly implied that it's a little bit more than just a battle game where you fight it out. It's teaching you how to do real military procedures. And Michael Kalea, one of the historians I talked to, told me a while back, he was like, you know, the Blackmoor bunch are the first ones that actually use professional wargaming tools. And Strategos was designed as a training tool for the United States military in the 1880s. And so you got these college kids that are using something from the 1880s that is a professional gaming tool, like real military stuff, to start making their games cooler. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's like, let's make cool games. So then the other one I sent you was a slide for Featherstone's book. And yeah, which I have a copy here in my hand, actually. What's interesting about that is that Featherstone in that book wrote about an Ancients war game battle. And I believe that this is Tony Bath's battle, which is a world setting known as Hyperborea, which is like Hyboria, right? Yeah. And I think it even calls it Hyperborea in here. He describes it as an Ancients gaming system, but it's pretty clear that it's a little bit more. And they were doing kind of like in this book, wargaming, it's mostly described from a wargame perspective. But one of the things that was going on in the Hyboria campaign is that they had sort of personas for their characters, and there was a system where you would draw the different leaders in the countries. You would draw cards, and it would provide the cards from a deck of cards would tell you kind of what their personalities were like. And it's kind of a precursor to RPG attributes, but they're doing a war gamed campaign that's very much starting to drift into the RPG aspect. But they're not. I think I run into people a lot who will be like, see, this is the guy that invented it. You know, they want to be really it becomes really personal, and they have like an investment in it. And it's if you're a historian, you want to stand back and just observe it and see what's going on and analyze what's there. And so in terms of like Featherstone's book, he doesn't really talk very much about Bath's system, but now you can go online, and if you look up Tony Bath Hyboria PDF, I think you can download the PDF of what has been scanned and made available to people. And so you can see what they were doing, but I haven't really looked through it closely because I'm just not that much of a British gaming historian. I'm really like I'm the guy on the planet that knows about Blackmoor and knows the Blackmoor bunch.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of are limited that way. So like if I want to know more about something like this, I'll talk to somebody that's like, I'll just be like, I'm not the expert. Let me find somebody in Britain that's the expert that can tell me about Hyboria and sort of guide me through this, because there's a lot there to unpack. But I suspect you don't have little things like equipment lists or a rule. The one rule I always use to kind of tell me that I'm playing a role-playing game is door opening mechanics. You until you get Blackmoor and then D&D, you don't have a door opening mechanic for exploring a dungeon. And that kind of tells, and individual like lists of price lists for like individual items that you would want to equip yourself with. Those aren't there until you need to be a person with a bunch of other people going down in the dungeon and exploring. So, you know, I think that you can go back in time and see that people were exploring these ideas. When I was a kid, we were always talking about how can we make our campaigns better? How can we do more, you know? And the biggest problem was just not having enough players. If you look at the Blackmoor bunch, like Tony Bath had, like, when he talks about what he did with the campaign, I think that conceptually it was there as going more and more towards a role-played war game and maybe further into a role-played game. But he didn't really have a huge player pool from what I've seen in his writings. And then you look at the Blackmoor bunch, the Minnesota crew, and they've got like 50 gamers in their club. And they're, you know, different levels of interest, but you've got this massive group of players. And so they could do things like when they started doing their Napoleonic games and turning them into campaigns, they could do these things like, yeah, I know who Scrooby is. I showed Jack Scrooby in Secrets of Blackmoor as kind of an influence with the Napoleonic section. So Scrooby and Featherstone and Bath, and who's the other one? There's another really famous English designer. I can't remember his name. But so you see that stuff, and then, you know, you can go forward in time. I think it's just interesting to see people, if you don't know, if you aren't, I mean, Pundit, you're a historian, right?
I am, yeah.
When you talk to people who are like younger students who maybe haven't read as many sources as you have, and they get really excited and they think that they've discovered something, like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Or they think they've made some connection that's really meaningful. And then you're like, yes, that's interesting, but you haven't read this, and you aren't aware of this source, and you aren't aware of, like, this writer in the 50s wrote about that and talks about that, but also sort of debunks what you're trying to say now in your thesis. And so maybe you need to go look at that before you, like, just run out and try to get everybody excited about what you're doing, because a lot of people are going to slap you down, right?
That's true.
I mean, do you know what I mean? It's like there's that newbie stage, and I went through it. And so when I see people doing this sort of like, we've invented a new thing and we're doing the thing, and it's like, well, hold off here a little bit, because we have a lot of things. So there are these really prominent sources. I hope I'm not being too boring. One of the things, and then you, like, there's the whole Napoleonic campaign stuff that was in the Twin Cities, which is really significant. And I didn't produce any of that to show on your show, because that's more like you'd have to write a book about it. But there are things within the Napoleonic campaign, like in Corner of the Tabletop, I think it was an article by maybe Bill Hoyt, who comes to Arnicon, where it was talking about the economy during the Napoleonic era. And so they went through and dug up all these, they did historical research, and they found prices for objects based on French gold coins. And so they were trying to recreate the economy of that time on a large scale for the wargame campaign. So, like, how much does it cost to equip a brigade of soldiers and also feed them and whatever for 3 months, right? But they were also looking at individual prices for little things, and eventually that evolved into the Brownsteins, which is also set in that time period. But it's kind of funny because people freak out over D&D's economy, and they're like, oh, it's so unreasonable, it's not medieval. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not medieval. It's pirate treasure.
Yeah, it really isn't medieval. It's more like a Wild West boom town, right? Because if you look at those prices,
it's make believe, and so they've combined like the idea, like I was saying, the Gothic horror. So you've got the fantasy of the Lord of the Rings and other fantasy books. Then you've got this sort of like Gothic horror element, because you got vampires and ghosts and all that stuff. And then the treasure is the bling. Those are the crunchy bits that the players get as a reward, the make believe reward, and that's all shiny stuff from, we all watched black and white pirate movies. Like, that was the stuff, and even in like Gothic horror, a lot of when you'd find something precious, a lot of times it was something that it's kind of just not long after the pirate era is when the Gothic stuff happens, within 100 years, and so it's just all mashed together, you know. But I'm sort of losing the thread. Am I making any sense here right now, Pundit?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we're at the start of it anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so you know, there are all these sources, and I think it's really probably the most significant. Let me get I should probably load up another image file or two. I'm gonna load up some Blackmoor stuff. Oh, here, let me see what I can do here. It's complicated. Slides and PDFs from my computer. I want to upload a file, and it's going to be the factions in Blackmoor. That should read pretty well on screen if you want to put it up as soon as it's loaded up there.
Oh, shit. I think I just lost him. Uh-oh. Hang on a sec. I did something wrong, guys. I think it was my fault. Hey, you just got booted. Please log in again. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
About that.
That was my fault. I was trying to remove some of the images, and I guess I removed you by accident.
Oh, I was like,
my
God,
apologies.
totally
No, it was my fault. I was getting rid of those pictures so that there was some more room.
Okay.
Let's try that again, guys.
All right. Did it stay loaded up after I loaded it, or did it disappear?
No, you're gonna have to load it up again. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, you know, when Blackmoor starts, it's kind of going from a role-played war game, and it's pretty clear he's reading this stuff, you know, but he's doing something really different in his own way too, because these old rules aren't very well written, and like sort of the mother of invention is misunderstanding, and then creating a new understanding from that misunderstanding. And so Arneson kind of starts to do something a little bit different. And all right, let's see if I can get
Go ahead. I promise.
There it is. It should be there. It's on. It was right there. Yeah. And so if you look through that, you'd have to go full screen to look through it all, but you can see like there's 3 different factions. There's kind of like the good, neutral, and evil, and that is kind of an influence coming from chainmail. And people argue with me about chainmail, and they don't understand that there's a lot of nuance there. And so and it's another one of those things where it's like, you're kind of a newbie on this history stuff. I don't mean to be mean and slap you down, but you're trying to infer too much about the meaning and weight of these things. Even chainmail, reading through the rules for this, they're using D6s, and it almost seems like chainmail is a little bit derived from Featherstone's books. And so I think it's really hard to just say like, this is the golden chalice, the Holy Grail, and it is the answer to all things. All of these things are kind of interconnected as you come forward. But here you've got, I guess I should put myself, actually I made a printout so I can look at my printout without having to lean into the screen. But you've got a list of all these different characters. And he also has like he's listing like the different sides, how much money they had, and he's got lists of what happens on the screen. I don't know what else to tell you, but there's definitely like wargaming going on. It's a little bit like diplomacy. It's a little bit like chainmail stuff. But at the same time, the evidence we have of the wargaming in the Twin Cities is that they are really into Strategos, and they're adapting it to everything. Probably the most significant thing is that, and I've talked about this in a lot of places, is the, let me load this one up too. There's two elements. We'll start with, it only lets me load up one. Well, here's the medieval battle. This one is interesting, and I don't have all of them to show on screen. Part of it, people give me a hard time for not showing stuff all the time, and it's like, I don't own this stuff. Like, I have copies of it and scans of it. It's not my property, and so I can't just publish it. You know, there's certain rules to how you do these things if you're a historian. And so this is like the Dave Arneson, what I call the Dave Arneson medieval battle notes, and the name, you've got the Baron Hoyt of Keston, and that is a name that appears on, like, it appears on maps from the original Blackmoor campaign when it first starts out. So my suspicion is that this is a battle that took place. It had to take place possibly in 1970, late 1970 or 1969. And so you're seeing there are other things that come with this, and every player is given kind of a persona. And so you're seeing elements of like the Braunstein role-playing game. So everybody's a personality, and you have an agenda. And so the way you win the game isn't by winning battles or vanquishing foes necessarily. It's by accomplishing objectives that have to do with your personal desires as that character. And then if you go further along, I just brought some things to kind of like show off. People were doing stuff that was very interesting within the domain games. But
can I put you on hold there for 1 second? We got a $5 super chat here from Robert Santon. Thank you very much, Robert. I really appreciate it. As you guys know, any super chats go to the Domino Cat Toy Fund. I don't know where Domino is right now, but she's probably outside. She's probably out. She loves being outside. So we'll maybe she'll show up later. Maybe she won't. But thank you very much for that super chat. I appreciate it. All right, carry on, Griff. Sorry.
No, I hope I'm not. I always worry that I bore people because I'm like in sort of like college professor
I don't
mode.
think you're boring this crowd. I think that
okay, like the hardcore gamers are like, "Ooh, what's that?"
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I get excited.
We usually have that kind of audience here, so I think you're going to be.
So you've got. I'm pointing at the screen, but you've got these you've got three factions. And what's interesting is that you can actually play this game. Bill Hoyt runs it at Arnicon. And so you can go to Arnicon, and Bill Hoyt, who is a Hoyt of Keston there, runs the game so people can experience it. He uses chainmail. I suspect that Arneson was using a variant on Strategos to run his games, because if this game happened when it happened, then chainmail doesn't exist yet, or maybe an early version of it exists that came out of the Castles and Crusade Society Domesday book fanzine. But anyway, it's interesting too. You can date it because there aren't any. There are the younger gamers that become kind of the core members of the Blackmoor bunch that are like 16 and 17-year-olds that do the fantasy role playing part of it, and they don't show up in this list. And they met them in like August of '69 is when they meet Svensson and the other guys. And so that's why this appears to be something really early, this game. And it's very much like a Braunstein, only it's in a war game format. And then if you go further, I loaded up another one, which is the famous, or maybe I didn't load it up yet.
Well, while you're loading it up, we've got another super chat here, $10 from Sadwin's Raging. Thank you very much. And he says, I love this history of how RPG evolved. So there you are. You've got a seal of approval there.
So I'm kind of doing an overview of a lot of different things, but I think that domain, I think there's a lot of interest in having domain game be involved in role playing, and while I personally think that there are certain things that make that really difficult, like I'm not even going to try it. I'll just play a war game that's a multiplayer game. There is stuff out there that people can look at, like I'm showing here, and there are these ideas. You can find these ideas in a lot of games and port them into your games, because people have been doing this for, I don't know, even since computers, like, was it Sid Meier's Civilization?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a board game first even, but...
Well, Civilization was a board game for many years before the video game came out, I never played
so you've got Civilization.
I played the board game.
That's a domain game where you've got an economy, and you've also got like scientific development, like cultural advancement of your society that's fighting other societies, and you're trying to dominate everything. If you Google Civilization, when did it first come out? People were doing stuff like this before Civilization. So it's like, I don't know, think what you will. But let me load up another one that's kind of interesting. This is another thing we discovered when we were making Secrets of Blackmoor that's like kind of it's pretty mind-blowing, actually. And what's interesting about it is that, there it is, the Royal Spanish. Yeah. So this one's interesting. The StreamYard logo is over the date, but we know it's May, like 21st of 1971 or something like that. Mm-hmm. We know that this is concurrent with a night that Dave Arneson is planning to run a Blackmoor game. And my suspicion is that Blackmoor goes back, based on information I'm gathering, I'm suspecting that Blackmoor started at least 6 months to a year before when people think Blackmoor started. I don't have really precise evidence, but that's kind of what research like this is like. And so this is one of the players, and he's playing. It was in the collection of Dan Nicholson, and I'm not sure if he was playing this character or it just happened to be in his collection, because we've got Kurt the First, and I know there was a player named Kurt. There was Kurt Cry, I think, and then there might have been another Kurt. And so it just shows you, like, this is a D&D character sheet essentially for a whole family. You've got these attributes that are being rolled. If you look at Kurt, he's got looks, which is charisma. Brains is intelligence. Sex is kind of interesting because what it really is fertility. And so this is a royal family, and you've got to be able to make a saving roll to, like, get pregnant and perpetuate the line, right? And this is really important stuff. Guts is like brawniness, toughness. Health is a constitution save. Miscellaneous is kind of a luck roll, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't see luck characteristic until 1975 with Tunnels and Trolls. So here is 1971, and you've got a luck stat. And you can look at the number values and know that this is being generated with 2d6, because I don't think we have any 1s, and I don't think we have any 13s in there.
True.
And so that's interesting. And I have, there's a write-up by Arneson in the corner of the tabletop. It's literally just a tiny little thing where he would, when he was running the campaign as referee, he would provide gossip sheets of stuff to people in the fanzine. And so people playing in the campaign would hear rumors, like, it's being rumored that, the Russians are amassing troops by the lake over there or something. So other players didn't know if it was a true rumor or if it was just a ruse, but they would get worried. And one of the rumors in there was that the noble of some country, it might have been Spain even, had become really ill. And so it seems pretty clear that what Arneson was doing a roll under mechanic. And so you would have to roll equal to your number or lower to not fail the roll. And if you rolled over, you would fail the roll. And so you've got this saving roll, and you've got health there. So, like, this noble has a 5. So every 3 months you roll to see if the noble gets ill on 2d6. And if you got a 5, you're likely to get ill because you're not very healthy, and somebody else is going to be taking over. Maybe the region is going to take over and start stoinking your wife, and you're dead. But so they're playing this game that's got a lot of role playing in it, but they're not doing the it's domain level, and they're not really doing the we're going to go do sneaking around stuff like in an RPG. So that's pretty fascinating stuff. I think that when I talked to Peterson, I showed this to Peterson after I found it, he was inclined to think that he was seeing Hyboria or Hyperborea. I think it's called Hyperborea in here, but I think it was originally called Hyboria. And he felt that this was similar to Hyboria, but I think I have a tendency to they're like lumpers and splitters, just like you have in archaeology. And so, like, especially paleoarchaeology, lumpers and splitters, like family trees. And I'm much more of a splitter when it comes to RPG evolution. And so this doesn't look like that, because you have an actual mechanic that you're rolling dice against. And I'm not really sure how Hyboria is. So maybe some expert British gaming history historian will be like, Griff, you got to talk to me about this. I know all about it. And I'll learn more. But anyway, this is really exciting stuff. Back to we're kind of running through. Yeah, this was just like my little presentation I was going to do that night, and I'm kind of it's a little lengthy. I hope it's interesting. There's other stuff like let me put up another slide really fast.
Go for it.
Yeah, boop boop boop. So we've done that, and that. Like internal investments is kind of interesting.
Is that this
in Blackmoor,
one?
there's the internal, yeah, and I realize it's a bit small to read, but he was doing stuff like he would have things that you could invest, like he lists the different things. If you pull it up full screen, I don't seem to be able to find my copy. I was supposed to print it out, but he just lists things that you can invest money in. It's like hunting and religion and exploration and shipbuilding and farming and fishing and trapping and tourism. This is stuff that he put in the first fantasy campaign when he published a lot of his Blackmoor rules, and they're not very well edited. It's really rough stuff, but this is what the Blackmoor campaign was like as a domain-based campaign. There's another one here. Let me grab that one. I might have not. Investments. Maybe it's the same page. Internal investments. Boop. Let's see what that looks like. We'll just put it on the screen. It may be the same thing, actually.
Let me take a look here.
There. Internal investment. Yeah. So you see, like, here it's a little bit larger, at least. So you can see, like, this is what the leaders of their countries, and this comes from their Napoleonic campaigns where they were doing the same thing. And so you've got investment in, this is like a game of Civilization before the game of Civilization existed. It's being played on paper. So the referee's got a massive amount of stuff to track. Greg Svensson described how just amazed he was at Dave Arneson's capacity for tracking all this crazy stuff to run a full campaign with 20 countries. And so that's kind of interesting too. I'm just kind of gonna skim a little bit because I think I'm gonna start repeating myself over and over, because these ideas of the domain play concept are just recycled, and they start appearing in the 60s, and you see, well, I don't know how old diplomacy is or risk is, but risk might be older, and it might, it's already like kind of beginning that little nugget that is interesting to people. We've done that. Oh yeah, special interests is kind of interesting because maybe that was the special interest sheet that I showed you. Or no, let's do that. Okay, special interests. Here's another one, interesting one.
Wait, I've got it now.
So now we're flipping into like characters, okay? So you're playing a domain game. You've got a character. They rule a country and stuff, but you're playing your character person, which is coming from the Brownsteins as well, only you're doing it in a game where you have a referee that's controlling everything as far as reality. It's kind of it's weird because he does it like, I think he was doing what I call switching, and so he was switching, flip-flopping formats between a wargame campaign with domains and also battle scale, and a role-playing game with Brownstein playstyle, which is totally different from an RPG like D&D and D&D. And so the characters have these interests that they have to spend money on, basically. Like you don't get experience points if you're like a womanizer persona and you go on into the dungeon and you get a lot of gold. The only way that you get your experience points is if you spend your gold after the adventure womanizing and also on training, but you have to spend some of it on your like sort of compulsion. And so that's kind of like an interesting design idea that Arneson was using. These days it might be considered very inappropriate or whatever, but I think Arneson was doing some really smart, creative stuff. Here's another one that's a continuation of special interests, but it's like a full page. So it might not be as easy to read. And so, yeah, you just see like other categories. He's kind of, in the book, he's trying to blend it with D&D to kind of make it relevant to people that play D&D, because all of this stuff that he's talking about in the first fantasy game really comes out of his personal campaign and what he was doing there. And Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, even like I think the last was going to show, and then we'll go talk about other things because this has been, I hope, not too dry. But
I
there
don't think
is,
so.
I
I
always
think you're good.
worry that I'm a nerd, right? I see this stuff and I go nuts. Like if you're a game designer, you're like, okay, this is like even this is like if you're doing role playing games, well, maybe you should be reading Featherstone and Tony Bath because those are the guys that kind of influenced. There was some crosstalk there between the British gamers and the Blackmoor bunch, and it's even more direct than just reading each other's books because one of the players, Bill Hoyt again, he was like maybe 16 or 17, and his family went on vacation to visit relatives in England, and I think he was in Dover, and there's a famous British game designer from Dover. And so they found out that he was interested in that. So he went over as a teenager and wargamed with this famous British game designer. And and so then he came back and then he met the Blackmoor bunch, MMSA group, and got with them. But there's like, these guys were writing each other's letters and they were in contact. And so there's all this cross-pollination geographically, but there's also this cross-pollination temporarily because they're getting stuff down through time from like Totten and Kriegspiel and stuff. And so the MMSA and Blackmoor bunch are just this crucible of like really smart people working on a problem out of passion, and it gets crazy. I mean, you can see it there. I think did I load up? I think the last thing I tried to load up was the town. Did you get it?
Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah. So here's the town of Blackmoor. There's a lot of debate about when this map appears. And this, again, is like a flip-floppy game because you've got reports that I published in the book, Blackmoor Foundations. In those reports, there's a report where there's like a meeting of leaders of different nations and stuff. I mean, nations, they're little tiny medieval domains. And, so they have this meeting at Blackmoor Castle, and there's a betrayal. And so they have to fight their way out. And what's even more interesting is that in that report about the betrayal, where they're in the castle, they're literally inside. Like if you can see Blackmoor Castle on the island up there in the upper part of the map, and they're in that part, and Arneson like has battle diagrams of what's going on. And actually I can show those on screen. But then we'll go back to the boop, boop, boop. Where are the battle diagrams? Did I start with the maps first? No. It's so, yeah, here's one. Okay, go to me full screen for a second and you can see. So there's like, yeah. Yep, there's the castle, okay? And there are little X's and there are like wagons drawn in there and stuff. And he basically did a battle report on the battle that happened during the game, which is a little bit like a Brownstein, but a little bit like already like a D&D game because there's a lot of guidance from the referee and the role play and what you can do. Oh, yeah, I would love to go to Albuquerque.
If you ever take a wrong turn at Albuquerque, you've got someone who's offering you some beer.
There's supposed to be like a game convention down there, and I really wanted to go, and then over COVID it got canceled. And one of the research guys is down in Albuquerque, I think. He does a lot of Strategos. But anyway, if we put up the map again of Blackmoor, just to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So with the Blackmoor map, what you've got is this town. Well, this is, I believe, McGarry's copy. And you've got two factions, and I think the blue faction is the innkeeper, which is Daniel Nicholson. So Nicholson is the innkeeper, and every time they go, and he runs the town like the mafia, like he's playing the innkeeper. But if you go into any store in the town of Blackmoor, either Dan Nicholson will play the storekeeper, or Dave Arneson. If Dan isn't there, Dave will take over and play the storekeeper in Dan's interests. And so it didn't take long for people to realize that every business there is paying protection money to the innkeeper, and he's running a racket. Well, McGarry was the thief character. He's running a different racket, and he's trying to steal everything. And so you've got this game session where other people are doing other things, just like in a Brownstein. It's being played in the town of Blackmoor, and McGarry contrives to dig a tunnel. You can look at the map, and I think, let me look at my little scan copy. Yeah, there's like a little arrow between the blue building, which is the storehouse. It looks like it has a tower on it, but it's not actually the church. That blue building and a little red building next to it. And so McGarry's characters, he's running a band of thieves. They tunnel between those two buildings and break in underneath and steal all the goods out of the warehouse basement during the game session. And halfway through, Nicholson hears noises, is told that he hears noises coming from the basement of his building, and investigates, and other stuff happened. But it's the first RPG heist that ever happened in RPG history, you know. And so we suspect that happened in about 71. Yeah, it's cool, right? But at the same time they're doing that, I've heard stories that other people are doing other things. There is a church there, which is kind of like, you see the rectangle in the town that's darker, and that's kind of like a wall around the church area. And that's Mike Carr, and he's playing this church that he invented, which is, you know, he's a teenager. It's the 70s. It's like this atheist mock church. It's not really a church. It's like the church of the facts of life, I think, or something like that. So stuff is going on there. Other players are doing other things. You got, I think that I guess my point is that there's so much overlapping stuff going on early on with role playing, where people are trying to do these sort of multi-level. It's not just domain play. It's there is a hierarchy, and people have influence, and so it's more like influence play, if anything, where you have leaders that are telling their underlings to do things, but their underlings have agendas, and they maybe even be conspiring against the leader that thinks, you know, this is my underling that I control, but they're actually trying to undermine them because their interests, maybe that's their interest to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff. I was kind of in a hurry, so I just grabbed random things. And also, I had to sell my game collection in 2008 because of the whole debacle with the economy. But, oh yeah, hey, look, I found my copy of the Dragon magazine. I didn't know where there's issue number 34. Anyway, what is interesting about this one is that they did a supplement to, oh wow, there's Doom Keep in there. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. What I have here is Divine Right, and this is another example of stuff being carried forward. And this is like, this is like probably one of my top 5 war games ever. If you want to play a really fun war game, you have to play Divine Right. It has a beautiful map, which would actually make a beautiful RPG campaign map. You could just turn the hexes into like 85-mile hexes, and you would have this like, I'll just hold it up with that really fast for a second. Yeah. But anyway, it's a TSR product. It looks really like that, sort of like half cartoony. But what I was leading up to is that you have these persona cards in here. And this is, again, this don't, like, you could get a copy of Divine Right and take things out of it to create sort of a domain. So every monarch, there are different countries, and every monarch gets this little, like, you randomly draw their personality, right? And so, you know, and this came out, I want to say I saw it maybe around 78 or 79. I'm not sure when it was published. But this is looking a lot like Tony Bath stuff, right? And it's a wargaming but you've got leaders and they've got personalities. You know, it's a cool game because it's an old school war game. It's got little chits that you punch out, bags of chits. It's interesting because you have like little sub factions that you can get that are like
we have a member of the audience here who said, I do run campaigns in Minaria/Divine Right. That's
you do? You are awesome.
There you go. That proves the test there.
Yeah. There are these like personalities. I believe these are the personality cards that you can activate. I mean, I'm just going to throw one up randomly. So like on top of being a leader, you can find these factions that you can ally with that are just these like military units. It's like very small scale medieval, but you know, there's a dude, right? And yeah, so there's, I mean, if you dig into wargaming and particularly like the domain theme wargaming stuff, you're gonna find this stuff. And so when I see people going on about thinking they're like doing something like profoundly unique and different, it's like, well, I'm glad that you're having fun gaming, but you do realize that like this came out in 1962, so we have proof that Bath was probably doing it in 1960. Like, you know, a lot of historians make the mistake of going like, well, it's published in 62, so that's when it's invented. And it's like, well, no, we see it talked about in 62. It could have been invented in 1960. And so this stuff, I mean, where are we? If this is 1960 to, we're already in the 20s, you know, already halfway through the 20s. We're talking about, what, 65 years of people, at least for that kind of stuff. And then you look at Totten, and I don't know. Yeah, that's my little lecture. So hopefully that's kind of interesting. I wish I knew more about the British gamers.
Thought it was very interesting. Yeah.
I'm going to throw the ball to you now, Pundit, because I'm just out of stuff to talk about. I've been
all right. Well, we've got one more topic to cover here, which is that I guess it was this weekend was GaryCon.
Oh, yeah.
The big announcement that came out at GaryCon was that apparently Wizards of the Coast is teaming up in some capacity with Luke Gygax to create a new Greyhawk book. Now, there's a lot of stuff that hasn't really been explicitly covered. Like, is it something that's being produced in the actual by Wizards of the Coast, or is it something that they're just licensing out? Basically, that it's they're going to allow Luke to use, you know, the trademark stuff.
Yeah.
But it's going to be them who's going to make it. It's very difficult to be sure what that's going to be. But either way, I mean, it had Dan Ayub, who's the current head of D&D design, basically in Wizards of the Coast, and he was trying to be very, you know, act like he was very pro Grognard.
Yeah, after all the stuff
Luke
they did.
Was doing the same shtick, right? But they actually had right there Justice Armand, who was the guy who bragged about making a Wizards book that had no white people involved. You know, it had Mackenzie DeArmas, the lesbian neurodivergent person who doesn't actually know how to design any D&D mechanics, but was credited as the lead writer of the what is it called, the Book of Many Things, where she created a retconned history that basically herself as a paladin and her girlfriend who was a Medusa created the Book of Many Things. You know, so you know, this does not seem like a good sign, right? And I've been told subsequently on Twitter by a couple of people that Luke Gygax said that Dan Ayub in a private phone call apologized for the absolute character assassination of Gary Gygax in the 50th anniversary book. You know,
it was weird to watch other historians come out and say, and I don't like to get into arguments with people. There is another historian that said bad things about Gary Gygax. There's another historian that published some things that Dave Arneson had written and kind of put him in a bad light, but mostly because he didn't explain the context of it. And, you know, it was like a letter that Arneson had written to somebody. And the letter seemed, if you didn't know the context, you would think Arneson is an idiot. If you understand that anybody in the industry in maybe 2000, 2009 era, like when WotC buys D&D, right? Maybe it was 95-ish. If you get a letter from Dave Arneson saying like, I'd really, you know, if you need any help, just let me know. I'd love to work on that stuff again. It's like, I don't know. It'd be like you're a physicist and you get Albert Einstein calls you and sends you a little note. It's like, hey, I hear you're working on some physics stuff. I'd be glad to come help you out, right? But then they show the letter from Einstein, and it looks like he's an idiot, like he's, and it's like, no, he's Dave Arneson. He invented role playing, right? At least the D&D kind of role playing, and he's not an idiot. He's he invented the thing that you guys are cashing in on, and your whole company is based on. Yeah. So when I see historians trot out stuff in the past like that, I'm kind of like, well, that's disappointing. And so that seems to be like the thing. And then they did the roasting of Ernie, and they did the roasting.
It goes beyond that, right? Because there are things you can say that are negative things about Gary Gygax that were true, right? Like he did kind of screw over Dave Arneson, for example, right? So
yeah, that's. I mean, even that, I'm not mad
that's
at
at least
Gary
a legitimate argument to make, right? But to suggest no. See, Gary Gygax was a rampant racist and sexist and homophobic person that was an example of toxic masculinity, and it's the reason why the white men can't leave the hobby soon enough.
Right.
That is where you end up. You're just engaging in political propaganda, right? And
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be polite because I'm just so tired of it. It's just like I just want to play games, Pundit. But
there is an obstacle to that, and it's called the people currently working at Wizards of the Coast, right?
Well, I think that they've shot themselves in the foot because, I talk about, well, if you're running a company like a big corporation, you're kind of playing a war game, and you're playing this war game with money. and a lot of times people that are in the position of being like a CEO of a company get a little bit of hubris going because they think they're really hot stuff, and it becomes emotional and personal to them, and they do stuff that they think, I don't know, they thought they were like on, it's like that righteous cause sort of thing. I mean, it was like it sort of felt like a religious thing in a way, like very cult like. All the behavior around it was very cultish, and I don't know, it's just a screw up because if you're running a business, if I buy a carton of milk, I don't care if the farmer that owns the cows that made the milk, I don't really care if they vote Republican or Democrat. I need to buy a carton of milk. Anyway, yeah.
But I don't know if that like if that carton of milk comes with a notice of support, I don't know, for Hamas, you might kind of care about that, right?
Well, Well, I wouldn't go down that road on your show right now because I have really a really nuanced perspective on.
All right, let's not get into that particular debate. But my point is that
you'd probably call me like you'd call me nasty names, and I'd look at you and go like, well, we don't need to be talking anymore because I have a really different perspective on what's going on. And anyway,
from my point of view, what this is showing is, I mean, it's evident. Like they spent the last 5 or more years telling regular gamers that they don't want them anymore, and then they realized that the regular gamers were the only ones that were paying for things, and now they need it again, right? So the problem is that there's 2 ways to do this, right? One would be if they are if they're going to turn around from their previous positions, right? If they're going to apologize for what they did to Gary Gygax, if they're going to say, well, we're going to go back to a more traditional type of RPG. And the other is if they pay off the son of Gary Gygax to put his name on a product and then hope that the member berries are going to take effect and the nerds will come back and fall for it all over again, right? And I'm afraid that's probably what's happening here. I've been asking over and over again to different people that are involved in the project, will Wizards of the Coast put conditions on what has to be in the book, right? Like how many members of the Circle of 8 are now going to have to be transgendered Black women, right? Or how many people are going to be in combat wheelchairs, right? Is Greyhawk allowed to be a place that is mostly human, or is it going to be full of multicolored demonic freaks and furries, right? And none of them want to answer those questions, which suggests to me that that is part
They're
of what
going to put that in. Yeah. What we need is just like a secret handshake at places like conventions, so you know like who the real gamers are. Like you could do like the tentacle face handshake.
Yeah.
You know, like you just walk down the hall and then like that 3 people out of the 100 that are in the hallway at the convention that are like, it's like, okay, let's go talk about real gaming. These other people.
And I know that there's some people that really like Luke Gygax, right? I don't trust him. Like
I don't know him, and I don't have any agenda or anything with him.
I don't really know him at all either in terms of like personally, but I can tell you, like I had a difficult relationship with my father for many, many years, right?
Yeah.
But if someone were to put in print essentially lies about him, even before, I mean, I kind of reconciled with my father before he died, but I would even before that, I wouldn't have stood for this, right? Like and Luke Gygax just basically laid down and took it, right? Ernie Gygax, who was flawed in many ways as a person, nevertheless, he stood up for his dad, right? And Luke Gygax
Ernie
chose mammon over family,
Yeah, the whole Ernie thing is really complicated, and all I can say about it is that Ernie was a true gamer, right? Okay, like he would play games. He would, and up to the maybe like a month before he died, probably people would go over to his house. They could be strangers, and he would just like have like a bunch of people in his living room gaming. Halfway through, he'd be like, hey, anybody want to throw in? We're gonna get some food, and he'd pick somebody to go drive to the store. They'd keep gaming.
Mm-hmm.
He was hardcore. They probably did a lot of weed smoking, so he was like, it was like classic 70s gamer dude. And they would go from maybe noon to like 4 a.m. And this is not something that just happened on special occasions. It was just like, we're going to play some D&D. And when you agreed to play D&D with Ernie, you were going to get dragged through the ringer, because most people would be like, I'm 6 hours in. I can't do this anymore. It's like, oh no, you've just arrived at the dungeon. Now you've got to like fight the monsters, And it's like, and we've got 8 more hours of this to do, So Ernie is really high on my list of like really cool people. And I think he got the treatment for if you look at the actual wording of what he said, it is so irrelevant as to like not mean anything, which is a lot like what happened to Bob Bledsaw. And, a lot of people got on him for some things, but I actually am friends with Bob Bledsaw, and I understand the context of what he was trying to say. And it's sort of interesting because, I don't want to go into like contemporary politics, but it's really interesting to watch the left and right flip flop on like who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, which they've done over time. And but back to the Luke Gygax thing, if you look at old photographs, when D&D is released, there's a photograph, and like Rob Kuntz used to bounce him on his knee, Luke on his knee.
Yeah.
And so Luke is about 2 or 3 when in this picture, when D&D is invented. The son that's really the D&D Gygax was Ernie. I don't really know of any history of Luke being like D&D until later. The one funny thing is that like and these are just facts. I'm not out, what I'm told is that Gary Con was invented after Gary died. The year he died, a bunch of D&D fans, local fans, wanted to honor Gary, and they wanted to run a convention. So they asked Luke, is it okay if we run a convention and call it Gary Con? Luke was like, yeah, go ahead and do it. But really it was being run by somebody else. And then Luke came in later and decided he wanted to like have control over it, more.
He took it over.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what the extent of Luke's involvement is, because I run a convention and I know how detail oriented that can be, and it's like Arnicon is a small convention, but it's still the same. You got to do all the same stuff.
Tons of work, yeah.
It's even got the economy of scale problem where it's like, you're still dealing with all the same stuff and the amount of time for a lot of it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, sorry if I'm taking up all the air here, but that's kind of what I'm here for, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
take up the air. But I think that also, like with the gamers, like for gamers like us, right? For me, Luke is not a person who was there designing the game when it was created, and he didn't write any modules. He didn't, like if you look in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you've got spells like Tensor's floating disc. Well, Tensor is earnest jumbled, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a spell that Ernie created when he was a teenager, I suspect.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of it's a brand name thing kind of thing. It's like who's easy to like bring in and put, like it. A lot of people are like, do these people even write? Like if Luke was like, I love D&D, I'm so into Greyhawk, and I know, like I was in my dad's head, and I know what the Greyhawk campaign is, and I've been wanting.
That's kind of what he argued in the press conference at GaryCon. He claimed that.
Okay, so I'm not gonna, I don't know what that is, but if he's like, yeah, I was in my dad's head, I know what Greyhawk is. I have this adventure I was writing for Greyhawk, and my dad thought it was great. I've never published it. I'm gonna do this adventure. Like, I'm not, who's gonna complain, right? So, but I don't. It's just
well, it depends. It depends on how much he sells his soul and modifies the adventure, right? If
yeah,
good conditions, right? Because I mean,
well, I think also
literally, I don't know if you're aware of this, but literally, when they did the new 5.5 edition, they had put in mandates about, for example, in the art, you had to have there was a limit on how many white characters you could show in the art, and that's why the book. Literally, the D&D 5.5 rule books have more black women in them than there are any than there are real black women playing D&D in the world, right? Like that's
it's all that stuff is so strange, because it's like if you go to a game convention, you look at the demographics at game conventions, and
that's the hilarious thing at that press conference, right? You could see it was all white guys and then Justice Armand, right? And he must have been so mad about that, It's these guys probably, like, they despise everyone who's at GaryCon, but they're doing it because Wizards needs to try to find a way to get money off of the only people who will actually pay money for the games, which is old school gamers, basically.
Well, look at the demographics of the game. Like, I think it was around 2014 they put out some numbers for D&D, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've been kind of trying to push this another agenda. The company's trying to give you an image of what they want you to think, and they're trying to alter your consciousness on these ideas. Well, they put out some numbers a decade ago, let's say, and their numbers, it was like an age breakdown, and so the age breakdown was basically like, I think under 35s maybe was 50% of the gamers, 35 to 55 was 25% roughly, 55 and over was another 25%. Or it was broken out like that. And so when you have a product and you're trying to do a giant umbrella, and you're trying to fit really diverse demographics under this giant umbrella, you're going to F it up. There's just no way you can't F it up. And so that's what they did. They F'd it up. They started doing pastel. They started doing politics. They started doing and that was because they saw it was so vocal on social media, because Twitter had been kind of taken over by agendaization at that time. And I'm a liberal, so it's not like I'm sort of like, I'm not like a Trump voter, like, darn liberals, and I'm just observing these things because I don't care. I mean, I yes and no don't care. I just don't care about arguing about it. But you look at the demographics, and so they were, it was still 50% of the people that were playing their game were over the sort of like pastel age group, let's say.
Yeah.
And so,
but the thing is that there's a ton of people under 35 who also hate that, right? Because the proof of that is that 5.5 is the worst selling edition of all time. I never thought something would beat 4th edition for that, but they did. And
they're scared. They're a corporation. They're scared. Like, I think that part of what people people are loving about Kelsey Dionne's Shadow Dark is that she's got kind of metal imagery in there. Like I've looked at the art. It's not a game for me. I don't want to like diss on it at all, but it's like metal. It's dark metal themed stuff. And so people, you know, the teenagers that are there's
and
like,
you know, she's probably not a conservative either. You know, I don't know, maybe, but I mean, like, you know,
she doesn't do politics.
She's a lesbian.
I love her for that. Yeah. And
You
who
know,
cares? I don't care.
There's zero politics in Shadow Dark, right? Like,
She could be a black, Hispanic, whatever,
I mean,
trans
obviously,
person.
obviously,
I don't
and
care if she made a
the point
kick-ass
that I'm
game.
kind of getting
And
at is that you know, Gen Z is not 100%. You know, they're not anywhere close to 100% woke people, right? And as time goes by, it's less and less. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think that the So, but just back to the you know, you look at the numbers. There are going to be, let's say, 20% of the teenage kids like they're like gnarly looking metal stuff with the writing that you can't read because it's not written for adults.
Sure.
It's
I mean,
for
everybody likes
metal kids.
You know, gamers like stuff that looks badass, not, you know, stuff that looks like it should.
They
be
don't want to be
character.
pussies. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be wandering around with a little wand or you know, or a daisy or something. I want the dude like the death dealer that was at Frazetta that did the death dealer guy on the horseback with the horns and stuff that was used on an album cover, I think too. Like, you know, I want to pretend that I'm a badass and I kick ass because I'm a scrawny teenager. I'm like, I mean, when I was 14, I weighed about, I don't know, 120 pounds or something. I was just like, boink. Just but they're back to the demographic thing. Like, so they did all this stuff that maybe it didn't. You've broken it down into you've got 50% and 50%. So the older gamers that they're saying are the bad people are 50%. Maybe 25% of them don't care. They're like, I don't care. The company can do whatever they want. I'm gonna still play my game because I'm having fun with my friends. And what's happening though is also they're on this swing that's moving forward. And so the people who were in the demographic that was their young demographic that they're aiming for are now starting to head into that age stage where you're going to college, you're maybe starting a job, you're maybe starting a family, you're doing real life stuff, and so those people aren't doing the D&D anymore, and so you are relying on those people, but they're like, you know, I gotta get out there and I gotta make the money and I gotta bring home the bacon.
That's the other thing that demographic test didn't consider, right? Is not who's playing, it's who's buying stuff, right? And the, you know, if you look at that, the people that are doing the most buying are still, you know, they're later millennial, or rather earlier millennials and Gen Z people, right? Because
and we want good stuff to read.
Kind of the income for it, you know.
Yeah, we I mean, it's the demographics are changing. I just think they're going to screw up because they're trying to do a universal thing, and the RPG lifestyle isn't universal like that. And
for years and years, they've been trying to sell D&D to demographics that traditionally have never played and mostly are not interested. Right? There are, of course, people of every demographic that play D&D, but in a lot of cases, those are individual people who play because they are nerds, right? But it's not a cultural aspect of their own culture to be playing those games, right? It's something that they're doing counterculture to their own backgrounds, you know.
I mean, if you look back, there's a history for this stuff. Any product, when D&D came out, there was an article in like Forbes or something like that. They interviewed maybe it was Brian Bloom, and you know, TSR was like going gangbusters. They had made like, I don't know, $11-20 million that year, and they interviewed him and they were like, well, what do you think is going on, you know, like you seem to know what you're doing because you're making all this money. And he's like, oh, it's just gonna keep growing. and then the article kind of changes its tone and it's like yeah, the yo-yo, oh yeah, like Lionel trains, I mean, you can just like go through all these products that had a boom, and the people that were doing it thought the gravy train was going to go forever, and it just doesn't go. I think that when we talk about these things, like Greyhawk Grognard did a show where he talked about it. I watched it earlier today, and or maybe last night, but and he was talking about the fans, and he was saying, the thing they don't like, and it was more about, is the OSR dead? Which the OSR will never die. It's just there. And so, people like us are more like, I don't know, like a jazz enthusiast. Like, not everybody is into jazz music, but there are people who are really into it, and they have they have their shelfies full of old vinyl and CDs and stuff. And
sure.
And so and they don't care, because they're just like, I just don't care about pop music. It's garbage as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to be listening to Britney Spears or whatever, or name the pop tart of the day. So yeah, I don't know. But as far as back to the Luke Gygax thing, which kind of launched all of this. I mean, your prediction is a nay on this, right?
Well, I'm if Wizards of the Coast was really smart about this, they would leave it untouched. They would because I presume that maybe I'm wrong, but I presume that Luke Gygax, if he's allowed to do it the way he wants to do it, he'll do it in a way that is very old school. Sure. I would suspect he'd do that because he knows that the real Greyhawk fans are going to more likely enjoy that, right?
My prediction is that it's going to fail for other reasons.
But I'm afraid that it will, that they're because there's a lot of internal politics in Wizards of the Coast, right? And you have now basically the vast majority of the people employed by Wizards of the Coast on Dungeons and Dragons are people who never played Dungeons and Dragons. Justice Armand is responsible for that. They brought him in as a kind of superstar in Candlekeep Mysteries, and then they let him hire a bunch of people who had never played D&D. They were mostly feminist bloggers, people who had done young adult novels, and people who write vegan cookbooks that were all.
Right, I was going to ask about the vegan cookbooks, because that's really important.
All nepotism, right?
Yeah,
and these
that's
are
a whole other story.
And their agenda is always very hard left, right? So if the problem that I see Wizards has is that if Dan Ayub was sincere, I don't know if he is or not, but if he was, that he really thought that this was a great idea, he's going to encounter conflict from his own staff, right? They're going to revolt about this. They're going to be like, how can you do this, right? There aren't enough, black women in Greyhawk, and this product is offensive to us, and so I have really strong doubts that they're not going to have editorial control over this, and are going to try to force it to be like all the other trash books that they've made over the last 3 or 4 years, all of which have been terrible.
Right.
And that Luke Gygax will just go along with it because he's basically interested in trying to have some kind of, taking some advantage over his dad's legacy,
Yeah, that's great. I think that, people the estates should make money off of these things, Yeah.
I mean, like I said, if they did it, if they gave him carte blanche and said, do it the way that, that you think it will work for the fans, that'll be fine. Right. But I'm right now, I'm very skeptic about that because of the experience of the last many years,
Right. I mean, I think that the big thing that's going to be an issue is just who gravitates. Like the whole D&D thing had the influencer effect, and so they brought in like people like Satine Phoenix, and I guess it's Phoenix, but she used to write it Phoenix. She's changed it since. She added another letter to it. Her and Jameson and then there are all these like YouTubers that are kind of like, they're a little bit more than just game people. They're personas, Yeah.
Well,
and so there's that.
The 5th edition generated a whole series of YouTube influencers, many of who, like Jenny D, for example, had barely played when she became a big star, right?
Yeah.
And these are people whose career is all about promoting D&D while not really knowing a lot about it.
They're the Kardashians of D&D.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Joe Manganiello, and then Joe seems to be like a real diehard D&D.
Oh yeah.
Like he likes to play, and so that's and so he's got like
apparently Dan Ayub is trying to get him back on board, right? Like, because before he took over, there was a plan to do like a Dragonlance thing with Joe, and it was trashed because they said no, this guy he's we don't want a white male doing this, and that was it, and now I was like, are you guys crazy? Like, this is the stuff we need, right? So to some degree I can see that he's got enough brains to realize what is necessary, but I don't know if he's going to have the intestinal fortitude to actually overrule the woke elements that are in Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro,
The fluff is always there. I mean, things, even without like the political agenda stuff, you're going to get fluffy. Like, I mean, people bought this magazine because it had cool covers, like that's got some, these are the knights I like. They look like that. Yeah. But, I don't think that Luke Gygax has the sort of persona appeal, like just star appeal, because he's an older, middle-aged, white man.
No. There's one thing that makes Luke Gygax relevant. It's his last name. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, if they really wanted to do it, they I think he's got kids, and it's like, yeah, don't you put Luke over here, get one of his cute kids who's a teenager and can be the representative of like, this is the Gygax family. I'm a gamer. I'm a teenager, just like you, teenager, and so if they want to bring in new gamers, because that's where you get the first like wave of diehard fans, but they just, like I said earlier, I just don't think they can achieve the universality of it, because even there's like stages. It's like back to when I was talking about the flip when D&D sort of started dying. Like, once gamers they play some D&D, the concept is cool, the rules maybe aren't perfect, or they want a different setting, everybody does it. You play a different game. You go, when I was a kid, it was like, ooh, Traveler just came out. Everybody had a set of Traveler rules when it first came out. Everybody got a copy of Call of Cthulhu. Yeah. Everybody, like, there were these games that just hit like wildfire.
I mean, I had Sandy Peterson on here, right? And essentially Call of Cthulhu was almost forgotten until that role-playing game came out, and then it became huge again,
Well, it wasn't forgotten because before it came out, as a D&D player, I was reading Lord of the Rings, and if you go into fantasy literature and sci-fi literature, eventually you're going to hear about these other things.
Yeah, but it was way more niche, right? Let's put it that way. It was.
Yeah, but I mean, I kept hearing about Lovecraft, and it was like, what is this? And so I read Lovecraft. So when
it was for guys that were like seriously into the pulp horror, I guess you'd say,
the subculture, is the horror, the fantasy, sci-fi, and it was like, it kind of transcends just being horror because it's got like weird things in it. So people who were, at least in my generation, people who were into sci-fi and fantasy read that stuff,
Yeah.
And also because there's just like, it's like if you're into a kind of literature, I don't know. I was walking down the street and they had one of those little libraries and those giveaway book libraries that are popular now. And I'm like, I always look at them. So I looked in and I was like, oh, there's a copy of The Great Gatsby. And I was like, I never did read that. I'll just snag that. So I was walking around the neighborhood, taking my walk, reading The Great Gatsby. And I read it because it's like considered to be great literature. And you just want to know, it's like I'm enriching myself. And so all of that stuff cross-pollinates, because it's like, if you're into that kind of literature, it's just mandatory to at least be able to reference it when you discuss it with other people, right? And then there's that crossover, which is old school, the crossover between the literature instead of anime and like cartoons, the literature impact into role-playing games. That Call of Cthulhu, the minute it was announced, it was just like, I gotta buy it. I haven't even seen it really, It's just like,
and I started RPGs a few years after you did, for sure, but like, for me and for tons of other people, the Call of Cthulhu RPG was the first we had ever heard of the Lovecraftian mythos, and it was so big that it created that attention.
But what I'm leading up to is just that there's a diversification, and so You know, TSR D&D up to about 85, it dominates the market because it's growing. As you know, the people that came in early are falling out to other games, but more people are coming in and buying books, and then they will fall out to other games later. By, you know, 95 or whatever, it has just imploded and people are doing other things. And as a market, like the big company will say like, oh, well, role playing doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, no, I was playing stuff then. I just wasn't playing. I was playing Whispering Vault and other things that were like just weird new games that I wanted to check out, you know. And it's doing the same thing now. And so I just think that they're kind of like doomed to failure because it isn't the one rule to rule them all game anymore. People are looking at other things, and then on top of it, I don't think Luke is going to be enough of a draw.
No, I mean, but he's not meant to be a mainstream draw. He's meant to draw back the old school gamers, you know, and the question is whether that will.
But we're all looking at crap like this now. We're digging deep. You know,
one of the problems that D&D has is, first of all, 5th edition was, we know now because we've seen like sales reports, it was by far the most successful edition of D&D of all time.
We want this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like this whole dungeon from Dragon number 34, you know.
5e was tremendously successful, and it had all the value of a fad, right? After the original D&D fad of the early 80s, it was the next one, and it was even bigger, right? But how do you follow up on that? It's very difficult. But as far as I'm concerned, at least on a personal level, every time that D&D has started to suck, the OSR gets bigger, right? And in fact, the OSR has been getting bigger over the last 6 years now consistently, right? So I think that you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really need the mainstream D&D to be successful, but it still pisses me off that it has been now ideologically captured by a group of lunatics, you know, and that.
Well, and that's kind of like, you know, I'm interrupting you, but we started Arnicon, right? Yeah. And part of Arnicon was just the idea, and it wasn't like an ideology having to do with politics or anything. It was an ideology having to do with gaming. Is a convention about gaming. Yeah, and so we started inviting people that other people ignore, you know. And so it may happen that some of the gamers we bring in, like Macris or Sandy Peterson or whatever, are more conservative. We had Justin Alexander there last year, you know, he's very lefty. I don't care, as long as you're a gamer and you're serious about game design, come, you know. And so and one of the things that we've had big discussions about is like, no, we're not going to do a cosplay contest. You know, like we're not, like, you come to the convention, we're going to have seminars on how to run war games and RPGs. We're going to have war games and RPGs. We have a computer room with like retro computers from 1975 games. Cool. And it is just pure gaming. We don't waste our time on anything else, you know, besides which I look really terrible in like a fairy outfit, like kind of, you know, and people don't want to see that. So no cosplay.
Yeah, you can dress up as a druid or something, maybe not so much a fairy.
Do a wizard or a druid. Yeah.
Yeah. That might work for you.
But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know what you're saying with that. And I just don't think, I think you're right. They're not going to bring, Luke is not going to be enough of a draw to pull people in. Yeah. You know, and part of that is because I don't think I haven't seen Luke do a thing where he sits down and talks about the thing. Like, if he sat down and he talked about the Greyhawk campaign, like he knew it inside out, right? And he's like, well, you know, at this time in the world's history, the whatevers have taken over and the humans have been driven into the woods, and now there are these like broken tribes running around in the woods and gathering ancient technological devices looking to get revenge, you know, like, I don't know, just like, you know, if I were to sit here and talk about my Blackmoor lore for my new campaign, people would be like, ooh, I'm interested in that, you know, because I spend so much time thinking about it. And I think that, like what you're kind of pointing to the idea of like treating the Gygax name as a brand name.
Yeah, that is basically what's going on, yeah.
I mean, they even had a fight over the name, I think, because of Gygax magazine. There was some drama around that.
I believe so. Yeah. A few
Yeah,
years back,
and
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I do know, but I try to keep from venturing into libel land talking about things like this. But I think that the old schoolers, the older gamers, you get older, you get smarter. Um, yeah, no kidding.
Wayne, we were just talking about that at the start of this segment. I don't know if you've just arrived or not, but yeah, that is exactly the point. Is that he is getting in bed with people who basically did character assassination on his dad and have never, they've never apologized publicly for it.
You know, that was a strange thing for me, just because as a historian, I've read a lot of histories, right? And so you have this forward where they take somebody from that's a historical person and they're writing about this person in terms of what they did with their life. And then they want to talk about personal things that they did and sort of like, oh, but watch out, this is a bad person, but there's this other cool stuff you want too, right? And it's like, if you, if my example is always Vlad the Impaler. Like, if you get a book on the history of Vlad the Impaler, there will not be a foreword that says, oh, and by the way, Vlad the Impaler put a lot of people on sticks. It was really bad, and we consider him to be a bigot.
Yeah. Well,
Against
nowadays maybe somebody would write that. I had an ancestor that was that had fought with, not against, but with Vlad the Impaler. So I've got a personal issue.
I'm not gonna mess with you. Yeah, he fought with him, alongside him.
Yeah, alongside.
Yeah,
him.
he was like his caddy with like
the-
a bunch
the
of poles. Like, here you go, Vlad. Here's another one.
He was betrayed by his own brother, by the way, Vlad the Impaler. Him and his brother were both sent as hostages to the Ottoman Emperor, and then they released Vlad. But the younger brother stayed, and he converted to Islam, and he was one of the guys that led armies against Wallachia.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at a history about Vlad the Impaler, you're not going to see like we're talking about Gary Gygax, who said opinions about things, okay? And opinions are like, and everybody has one. And but then when you see a book about Vlad the Impaler, I don't know what the numbers are. We're talking like 30,000 people, 70,000 people.
Yeah, he's in the tens of thousands for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a guy who took people and ran
loved impaling
poles up them and put them on the pole up in the air. Yeah. And it was not pleasant for a lot of people because it's a very slow death. It could take days, maybe.
Well, his greatest victory he had done a night attack on one of the Ottoman camps. He dominated them completely, and then he like impaled like 20,000 of them in one go, and the Pope was so happy about that he declared that the bells of every church should ring throughout Christendom in celebration. So it was a different time.
It was a different time. We had different values, different values. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, if you look at it from a scholarly perspective, like I think that they wanted to make a scholarly book, and I watched the interviews that they had with the guy that
well, that's part of the problem, is that scholarship these days is terrible, because it's all based on the kind of revolutionary ideals of Paulo Freire that suggests that education should basically just be instruction on creating revolution, So it's all meant to be subversive.
Yeah, well, you have to be, you have to kind of like separate your bias and stuff, I mean, yeah. We could go on.
Well, it used to be that the purpose of history was to understand people as they were in the context of the times, right?
Right.
Now that is completely reversed. Is that everybody should be looked at by. Well,
we're trying to impose. We're trying to impose perspective from today rather than just observing perspective of.
That's how you get stupidity, like people. To put it to use a non-leftist example. Of so-called historians claiming that Churchill was the real bad guy of World War II, and stuff like that. It's just nonsense.
So I was going to ask you, like, when are you going to make it to Arnicon? Because you'd find yourself, you'd find it interesting, because there's a lot of interesting gamers there. I keep trying to get Wenger went to.
Venger asked me when I was going to go to VengerCon, and I said, as soon as you guys give me like about $3,000 for the plane ticket, you know.
Right. Well, I think your backers should be like, we want to see you at Arnicon, because you're not
Well,
going
I
to get
mean, if I
invited
get
to
a
the
bunch,
other
I
cons.
don't care where the money comes from. You know, if I get a bunch of fans of mine that want me to go to a con in the States, I'll gladly do it. You know, if they're financing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Well,
if I
that's
ever
why I'm
happen to
writing
be
books, because
around
I
at
want to
the
go
time,
back to
you know,
Italy.
I haven't visited the States in years now, but you know, I lived in various places in the United States over the years, so and there'd be no reason why I couldn't go, except that now I'm old. Like, you know, when I was young, like in my 20s, I traveled basically the entire time. You know, as soon as I was able to travel, I was traveling all over the world, right? But now I'm old, and it's like, oh, you know, I could go to Argentina this weekend. It's like, because it's a 2-hour ferry ride. I'm like, nah, I don't feel like it. You know, like, I've become very much a homebody now.
It's pretty hilarious, because I do the same thing where I live. It's like, I could go across town to that one place, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
No, I would love to get you somehow, like, if you ever end up in the States, you know, or if your fans can find a way to like bring you in, I'd love to get you at Arnicon. I think you'd find it really interesting.
Oh, I'm sure I'd love it. Yeah, absolutely.
I keep trying to get
I wouldn't go to Gen Con. They probably wouldn't let me in anyways, but I'd love to go to something like Arnicon, sure.
But like Venger went to GaryCon this year, and I'm like, dude, you need to come to Arnicon. You know, like you would be a star there. Whereas
I think GaryCon is closer to where he lives. I think that's the only reason.
Well, he's in Madison, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's still got to get a hotel. It's not like he's driving home for the night, I don't think.
No, I guess not. Yeah.
And the hotel rooms are about $300 at that one. Ours are cheaper, half that. Anyway, have we covered everything we wanted to do?
I think we have, and it's about time to wrap up. But just like I always ask every person, the first question that I asked you, right? Who is good to you? Who's been good to you? Who's been bad to you? There's also a final question that I ask every contestant on the RPG Pundit encounter.
What is your favorite color?
No, I have to give you some context to this, right? I've started doing this because, you know, I am an absolute D&D nerd, or RPG nerd. Let's put it that way, right? I mean, I work now making RPGs. You know, I play RPGs constantly, and you know, I love everything about them, right? But other than that, I don't have any like typical nerd hobbies, right? Yeah, I'm a historian and that sort of thing, but that's not really a nerd thing. That's a scholarly thing, I guess. But I don't, you know, I don't watch anime. I don't collect Funko Pops. I don't play any collectible card games.
Right.
I almost never play war games anymore, though. You know, a classic war game I might do, right? But I don't play like those weird German board games. I don't play video games.
The Euro games.
I don't collect comics anymore. I did when I was a teenager, right? I mean, I'll watch, you know, an Avengers movie or something, but that's not really a nerd thing anymore anyway, because it's popular culture now, right? It's just that, right? I don't collect Star Wars or Star Trek or Doctor Who memorabilia. I don't have action figures. You know, I don't do any of that stuff, right? I'm basically the exclusive nerdy thing that is like classical nerd hobbyism that I do is RPGs, right? So my question to each of my guests has been, how nerdy are you? Besides Dungeons and Dragons, what are your other nerdy pursuits? And of course, the winner is the person who has the least nerdy pursuits.
I don't have it all right here, but like, well, somewhere, like everywhere else in the house. Well, I have a blueprint, and the reason I have that blueprint over my shoulder is it's a blueprint of the Armor and Company slaughterhouse, but it also has the tracks on it, and I'm a total model train fanatic. Like,
oh, geez, model trains. That's classic.
I'll show you.
That's old school. I mean, even in your other nerd hobbies, you're an old school guy.
Like, yeah. It's kind of dusty here. Sorry, I had to go across the room. I'm like, I got all the nerd stuff, Pundit. I am like, I cross over into all of it. So this is like this little narrow gauge caboose, kind of dusty. But it's like see the little pieces of wood? Those are individual pieces of wood.
My
that I
God.
cut and I built this.
I think you've just done
like,
first ever, because I'm pretty sure you're the first guy we've had here who is a model train enthusiast.
well, I was also into miniatures and military airplanes, ships,
okay.
tanks,
So
all that crap. So there's the model building side, which ties in with the war game side. I'm more of a war gamer than a role player, actually. And this is 55 N3 instead of ON30. So it's HO scale 3-foot gauge instead of pretend 3-foot gauge with ON30, and it's all scratch built. So I have just piles of model trains squirreled away everywhere. Then there's this hobby, which is the really active one right now. So it's not plugged in. It's a let's see if we can get some sound out of it.
no idea what that is.
What?
I have no idea what that is.
Oh yeah, it's a synthesizer for making music, but mostly I use it to make see if I can unmute it. Yeah, there we go. What do we got there? I don't know if you can hear that.
I can, yeah.
But I mostly use it to do let me see. Got a nasty sound. Yeah, like kind of sound effect type stuff. I'm really interested in music when it kind of breaks down into almost being like the background noises, like in a.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is unbelievably nerdy, actually.
Yeah, it's you can play with the filter a little bit and open up the filter. Oh, come on. Oh, this is the filter knob here. Yeah. You can get into like a bit crush type sound, but lately that's my big thing is the synthesizers. Is like I'm just like so into the let's get some crush going. See if it'll crush out. Yeah, there we go. I love it. Anyway, so that's my other hobby, is just like making weird noises.
You are an entirely different level of nerd. I don't even know how to classify that.
Well, in the filmmaking, like I don't know if you remember in Secrets of Blackmoor, the scene where it's like Rob Kuntz is talking, and I wish now I want to re-edit it. There were some problems. We were rushing to get the movie done. I really don't like the timing on it. Nobody else cares except for me. But there's like all the dry ice smoke, and it's really dark, and you see the backlit figures like that. That's kind of experimental film is really my thing. The documentary is a total accident, Yeah, it's kind of a mistake, Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, you got me going. I have some weird sculptures, wire sculptures.
Hang on. We've got a super chat here from Wayne Brack. Wayne Brack. $50 just because you're interesting to listen to. Thank you so much, Wayne. I really appreciate it. All super chats go to the Domino Cat Toy Fund, and
I do. I have a thing on. I think it's on Bandcamp. I got to retrieve the money from it. I have an album of like droney synth music for RPG games, and it's my name on there is the Synth Lord Chamber. And the album is called Dungeon Fuzzbox.
The secret life of Griff Morgan. Here we go.
I'm just into weird shit, like you just kind of like start to like I obsess you should kick me off the show now. I could go on and on about this other weird stuff, but it's irritating because I end up on all these shows and all people want to talk to me about is games, and I'm like, but I'm a filmmaker. Don't you want to talk to me?
Definitely are a filmmaker. There's no question about that. Secrets of Blackmoor. If any of you guys haven't seen it yet, you really should. It's an incredible documentary. And well, that's about all the time we have for now. I don't even know where to put you on the scale, but obviously Driving and Dragons continues to be the reigning champion of least nerdy guy I've ever interviewed. He left earlier today, but yeah, because the winner is the least nerdy guy, right?
Oh, yeah, I failed.
Driving and Dragons, plays D&D.
Oh, aquariums.
And then his other pastimes are hunting and fixing classic cars. So like those are two completely nerdy activities.
That's guy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's going to be tough to beat, right? Because you can't just say, "Oh, I only play RPGs." you're going to have to think of something more manly than the stuff that Driving and Dragons does. So anyway, thank you so much for coming today, Griff. I really appreciate it.
If I could hug you, I would. I mean, like, you're a friend, you know. I'm just like,
no
so
problem.
good to see you, my buddy there.
It was my pleasure to have you. I can't say when we'll have you again because, you know, I only do one encounter show every 4 weeks. And so I'm always looking right now. I'm still always trying to have someone new.
This is probably a last chance to see me on somebody's YouTube show. I'm just not going to do them anymore. I might go on Macris's show one more time if he's interested in me this year. And that's mostly just to promote Arnicon. So
our next show, unless something comes up, will probably be on Sunday, the 12th of April. And I hope you guys are going to come and see that. I have no idea who the guest is going to be yet, but it's going to be somebody. And meanwhile, once again, I will reiterate that right now on DriveThruRPG, the Old School Companion 3 is the current deal of the day, which means that it is the PDF is at half price. And if you haven't picked up the Old School Companion 3, you really should. It's got incredible stuff in it. It's usable for pretty much any OSR game to add more medieval elements to your stuff. It's got magic systems. It's got monsters. It's got entire outlines of real medieval cities. It's got a guide to being a student in a medieval university, which is really more crazy than it sounds. And
it's not Harry Potter.
A bunch of other stuff. No, it's not Harry Potter, but I mean, it's like as if it was like drunken demon summoning Harry Potter, right?
Okay,
this is what
much better.
The medieval scholars of Oxford and Cambridge were maniacs, you know. So it's pretty cool. And check that out, guys. And also, once again, I will point out that the Pundit files are back. They are now on DriveThru. Issue number 6 of the Pundit files is Siege Rules, which is a set of rules for managing sieges as either the attacker or the defender. And it's pretty much, you know, OSR compatible for any OSR type game. You should check those out. Check out all the other issues of the Pundit files. And that's basically about it, guys.
One last question.
Yeah.
Have you had Matt Tapp on your show?
Yes.
Arrows in Borderlands. You have?
Yeah. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
He's amazing. I've said that Arrows in Borderlands is the best RPG of 2025 that I had nothing to do with. That's as far as I'm going to go. You know,
that's what I think too.
It's absolutely great. Yeah. You know. All
right. Let's get out of here, dude.
We will see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. And keep checking my videos for more interesting and no doubt controversial stuff in the hobby. And thanks again, Griff.
Sure.
And we are now
Always
ending the stream. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.